Did you come to the show tonight?
I think
Last
you did.
night.
Oh.
Last night.
Yeah.
Ah, tonight was better.
Oh, really?
But last night was okay. But tonight was...
It's the first time we've ever interviewed anybody after a concert.
I like to do them after.
Is that right?
Yeah, especially here because I really like to gear up for them here. And I didn't feel like talking first and shooting later.
Mm-hmm.
That was better the other way around.
Mm-hmm. We're still in a roll.
Yeah.
Not close.
Shall we start?
Yeah, no, it's...
まず今回のツアーの、感想を聞きたいんです。
Who wants to know what you think of this tour this time around?
It's been the most fulfilling for my heart since I was in a band, since I was in the Stooges. I went to a lot of trouble, to great lengths to get the right band this time, and it paid off. And also, this has been the most extensive tour that I've ever done. We've done 118 gigs now since July 7th. People my age aren't supposed to do that, but I'm determined. And I've been doing a lot of old Stooges in the set because when the Stooges started out, all my material people used to laugh at, and they didn't groove on it. And now I saw my chance to bring my work into the light without the burdens of drugs, without the burden of prejudice against my musical style, and just show people what I could do. And so I worked very hard to be in shape before the tour, worked hard to get a good band, and I try to work hard every night for people, and I feel good about this.
It's like the triumphant homecoming for the
That's
students,
right. That's right.
Is it working well?
Yeah, it's working well. And also the new material has been absolutely meticulously received by the people in the front rows. In other words, I sing Squarehead or Cold Metal or High on You, and people know every word. And I didn't print them on the album purposely. I didn't want to make it too easy.
Mm-hmm.
When I recorded this album, I was determined that I'd do a rock and roll album with a lot of content. In other words, this album is not about just, hey, let's get it on. If you listen to the words, there's a lot being said here about corruption that we are all horribly involved in, about the wistfulness of wishing for a better life, and about the limited means we all have of obtaining that. And I really wanted to lay my heart on the line, and I didn't want to just print it on a page for people. I wanted people to have to listen, and I've been vindicated by it, I feel. That's how I feel. I feel good about things right now. But I'll feel even better when the tour's over. I have only 14 gigs to go now, and I'm done for a couple of years. Yeah. It's been a big one.
Yeah.
We've been everywhere. We've been to South America, the Middle East.
Where do you play in the Middle East?
Israel and Greece.
Is that right?
Yeah. And obviously Europe extensively, the United Kingdom fully, America twice, Canada twice, everywhere I could go.
I guess when you have finished this, you will.
And Asia now, and we're on our way to the nether regions of New Zealand and Australia. When I finish, I'm going to attend the Grammys, where I've been nominated for Cold Metal.
Is that right?
Yeah.
In what category?
In Best Hard Rock Heavy Metal Performance.
It's the first time around for that category.
You betcha. For me, it's the first time around to be nominated for anything in America.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I used to be treated like a pariah there, and this tour has been so long that I was shocked when my managers called me 2 weeks ago and said, "You've been nominated for a Grammy." I said, "Look, don't joke with me. I'm on a tour." And he said, "No, you have." And so I felt like, at that moment, I felt like someone had noticed my hard work. Basically, I would call this the hard work tour, and I feel good to know that hard work pays off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
なんで今回そういう本腰入れて、やろうっていう気になったんですか？
Why is it that you all of a sudden wanted to so you weren't vindicated? Why did you want to put so much into this one tour?
Because at the time that I originally did a lot of my best work, conceptually, I was way ahead of the rest of the world, and people weren't ready to accept it from me, and I wasn't ready to fully portray it correctly because of my own problems with drugs, and more than that, with discouragement. In other words, I have the same sort of discouragement now that I had then. People will try to go, oh well, it's just a bunch of noise or something. But whereas I used to go, well, fuck you, I'll go home and shoot up. Now I go, fuck you, then I'll do another song until you believe it, motherfucker.
Think people still react to you that way, though?
Yes, some of them in the industry.
Oh, in the industry.
In the industry. See, there's two sides to this game. There's the relationship you have with your audience who really likes music, and then there's the industry. And it's been a hard battle for me.
But obviously you're winning it.
Yes.
Yeah.
今回のアルバムとかツアーを見た人はストゥージーズ時代のイギーが帰ってきたっていうふうにみんな言ってるんですが、あなた自身の中ではそういう気分的になんかあの頃のものが戻ってきたようなそういう自覚はありますか？
A lot of people who have seen you on this tour have been saying that
アルバム
a lot of people who listen to the albums feel that it's hearing that album, they feel that you've almost reverted back to the Iggy who was in the Stooges. I guess that's an accurate assessment.
You betcha. The reason for that was because the key to the Stooges was not whether we were hard. It was the question of we were doing something at that time that we had to fight for. In other words, it's easy now. If you started a band now and had it sound like the Stooges, it would be in fashion. It'd be easy. But when we did it, we had to fight for it. And after Blah Blah Blah, for me to have done this album was dangerous.
How's that?
Well, because in Blah Blah Blah, all the industry accepted me. They wanted to give me lots of money to do another album like it. A&M Records will not be putting out my next record.
Okay.
Because they didn't particularly like this one. I'm doing the next one's with Virgin.
They're not wanting to give you...
Well, they would have put it out, but at a greatly reduced amount of financial support. So I've gone to Virgin.
Was that right?
Oh yes. Not that they're a bad company, but they're more into Tory Childs. I'm Iggy Pop. I'm a little too hard for them. I've laid my ass on the line for this tour financially. I've laid my whole neck right out because I believe that what I owe my audience is to give them what's in my heart. And in my heart, I feel that the kind of music that means anything is the sort of music that people in a room play together all at once. And that's what's on Instinct. Every track on that album is bass, drums, guitar, and the vocal and the organ all at once. We played all together at the same time. And we just lived or died by it. On Instinct, at the end, you can hear me go flat. But I didn't change the vocal. I didn't punch in or anything because there's feeling in the vocal. So I went for the feeling, and I went for the immediacy of people playing in a room together. That's what's exciting to me about music. I don't get excited. I don't want to name names, but I don't get excited over some guy who can sing perfectly in key with 4 octaves, with hiring the best musicians possible and punching in and overdubbing. It bores me. And so that's not what I want to give. So I want to give people my best. Even if 5 years from now I'm making records for SST or Homestead, even if I'm a bootleg artist, I'll still be doing it when I'm 60. That's the way I feel. And not because it's rock and roll, because I'm not addicted to rock. One of the best things I've done, I think, in my recent career is the Risky track with Ryuichi, who I'm having dinner with after I leave you. With Sakamoto, do you know this track, Risky?
Yes.
I loved working with him because this is musical exploration, and it came from here. Nobody told me what to do on that track. Ryuichi just handed me the cassette, and said, do anything you want. Nobody said, do something commercial or just do anything you want. I like your singing. That's all he said. And so I got excited. And I said a lot of, the beginning of that track sums up my life. I said, born in a corporate dungeon where people are cheated of life, I knew I had to get out. That's a long way from saying, ooh, baby, baby, I need your bad medicine tonight, or whatever. This is different.
A little more depth.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, and I'm happy to live with that. I always had the depth before. The difference was when I was doing raw power and trying to reach for depth, I didn't have the stability I have now. I didn't have a wife who loved me to support me. I didn't have the stamina to make sure that I controlled my management. My management was taking all my money. They were keeping me off tour because they were too busy with David Bowie. It's true. I think maybe they didn't want Bowie to have the competition. I'm stronger now. I'm a grown man, and I'm still playing music that is ethically rooted in the same ethic feelings I felt when I was 20. Except now I'm doing it with a man's weapons. I think you must understand something about that because you guys have been through a few rounds of what it's like.
Is it greater determination now? Do you think you're about as equally as determined as you were back then?
You betcha. More determined.
More determined now.
Because back then I used to give up a lot. Like if I had too much work to do, I'd just say, oh, this is too much, I can't stand it, I'm going to smoke a joint, or, now I'm like, let's do the work. I think work. Call my mother, get some money. No problem, right? I think you're facing this in Japan now. You have a lot of kids who are like suddenly more or less rich for the first time. And a lot of people, older people, think, well, they don't want to work, It's not true. They just don't want to work at what Dad worked at. They want to find their own thing that they can believe in to give themselves to, And I've found something I can give myself to, and I'm trying my best. It's like being on a race course. I may skid out, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I feel.
こういう今回のアルバムみたいなサウンドとか、今回今の、イギーのようなスタイルだと、その私生活ももっとね、例えばドラッグをやったりとか、すごくワイルドな生活を送ったりしないと本物じゃないみたいな考え方もあるわけですけども、今のイギーの話だとそれと正反対なわけですよね。そういう意見に対してはどう思いますか？
Some may have been given the impression that Iggy was Iggy because he was such a crazy guy, because he was so reckless. And if Iggy is no longer that kind of a wild, reckless kind of guy, his music is therefore no longer what it used to be. That's obviously not a valid. Anybody who thinks that's obviously coming from the wrong direction, they're missing the point.
Well, I would say that there is. I would say this. The reason they would have gotten that impression is for a good reason, and that is that Iggy's music, my music, deals with the ideas and forces of recklessness, and the ideas and forces of desire, anger, wanting to get and not quite getting there, sometimes getting there, but it's a question of dealing with those forces as opposed to just giving in to them. If you had seen the show tonight, it was an interesting show because before the show, the promoter came to me and said, if you go in the audience again tonight, I'm never going to be able to do a show again. In other words, the security is demanded that you don't set your foot over the stage. So that took about 9 songs, and then I had to. You understand what I'm saying? I had to. So like I started going in, and they go, and then I'd look at one of them. I threw the mic stand at one of them. I still have that in me.
Rebel.
Yes, but it's the rebel. The question of being a rebel is not to be one; it's to deal with the impulse. It's not enough just to be. I don't want to go, I'm a rebel and I've got leather. It's more, why do I want to rebel? And I think about this, and I think about the idea of it. I must say also, I wish you'd been there tonight, because tonight musically was much better. I can't afford. I'm not a rich person. I'm making a living now, which is nice. You know, like I actually have a home and everything. But I can't afford to take my own equipment this far. So last night was the first night with our Japanese equipment, and we didn't have a very good sound. Tonight we had a good sound. Because my technicians I brought, and they're good. So I had a good vocal sound. It was loud. It was bitching. But that's aside from the point. I'm just proud that musically we were much better tonight.
その反抗したいそのこうパワフルな時っていうのはね、今回インスティンクっていう歌で Ending Carefully My Fire Waiting My Season っていうフレーズが入ってるんですけども、すごく同じインスティンクっていうコンセプトにしてもやっぱ大人だと思うんですよね。そうこういうフレーズが出るっていうのは、その辺やっぱり以前ストゥージーズ時代のそのなんかパワーとかそういうもののあり方とやっぱり変わってきてます。
The line he just read there from the song says that is a very telling line, in that it's very adult-like, where at the same time it reflects the same sort of power that you had during your in the Stooges there. Is the power the same, or is it greater?
Exactly the same, no more, no less. It's the same thing. But the difference is that when I was in the Stooges, I used drugs and also isolation. I could never have done a lot of the things I do now, like the public life part. Then I would just hide from everybody and be stoned enough and wild enough to make sure that nobody got in my way of this thing I wanted to develop. And later, now, that's no longer possible. If I tried to do that now, I wouldn't be able to get the gigs together, because I'm involved in a corrupt business and a big business. And so when I speak that line, that's talking about picture me sitting nicely at a large dinner full of people who can help me and can hurt me. And I'm sitting there, I'm taking it all in, and I'm hating being there, but I'm taking it in, but I'm always remembering why I'm there. And the reason I'm there is to keep that little fire going, so that someday I'll be able to get out on the stage and make that fire. Yeah.
You're talking about.
In other words, basically, I'm the sort of rock and roll performer who should have been dead before 30. But I'm not dead, I'm alive. This is a problem. You know what I'm saying? In other words, I'm past the Jesus age now. I opted for life. And because of life, I have to deal with the dilemmas of actually living a full life now. In fact, I'm so old that I actually see my own death now as part of my life. In other words, I'm actually counting the days. I'm looking at, I think, probably 20 more active years. I think I can keep doing good work until I'm in my early 60s, and I'll probably have to stop. I can't picture having much to say after that. At that point, I'd rather probably, sort of smoke a cigarette and play with my grandchildren or something.
I mean, society gets older and older. I mean, when you're in your 60s,
that's lucky for me, actually. Yeah, that's a good point. But you must have noticed that I haven't opted for playing to people my age. I'm going for the young ones. I'm going for I like the older ones too.
Is that true now? I mean, your audience now is much younger.
Yeah. But I've kept the old ones. That's why I'll be crass for a minute. My record sales on Instinct. Now Instinct has not sold as many as blah blah blah, but not that much less. Not that much less. Instinct has sold more than 4 times what any of my solo albums sold. It sold about 8 times what any Stooges album ever sold. Yeah. But it's still very extreme. And the reason is because I'm working hard for it. I'm out there pushing. So.
It says something about the times.
Yeah.
Actually, he was going to ask a question about that.
And Instinct's not that great an album. It's just the best I could do. That's all I say. It's the best I could do.
質問はいいね。
サーカスオーパーは、曲提供したりしてますけども、そういう新しい動きっていうのを
だから要するに時代が彼に追いついてきたっていう。
そういう、そう。またその時代になんか同調する部分っていうのは感じますね。
You know, things seem to be paying off now. Say the years of hard work.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
You've provided. You've written songs for Circus of Power, and a lot of the hard rock bands that are very popular right now seem to somewhat reflect the power you introduced.
I sang "I Want to Be Your Dog" with Sonic Youth in London, and that was fun. But I must say, most of this stuff is accidental. Like the way it worked out was like with Circus of Power. The only reason they got that song, that was a song written for Instinct. And I rehearsed it for a month with my band and decided I didn't want it on the album. It wasn't quite, it was a little too juvenile or cute for me. It wasn't right for me. It was a little too looking back. So I put it on the shelf, and their producer, Dan Ray, had done me a lot of favors in the pre-production of Instinct because Steve Jones was too busy to come in until the last week of the pre-production rehearsal, so Dan played all the guitars, and I was hoping to put him on the album, and I couldn't find a place for him because Steve Jones only likes to work with Steve Jones. Steve Jones has an ego as big as his chest. He's such an egotistical motherfucker. Oh, all guitar players are a pain in the ass. Andy McCoy is a pain in the ass. But I love Andy McCoy, but I love working with him. He's sometimes I'm like strangled. They're like I used to be. And so Dan Ray called me up and said, "Listen, I'm producing a band called Circus of Power." And I said, "Great, I'd seen him many times in New York, and I liked him because they're just a good. I want to promote the idea of just young bands playing on the street. Because if there's no bands playing on the street, there's going to be no music industry. If it wasn't for me, there'd be no Sting. If it wasn't for people like me, nobody would even bother to listen to a lot of this commercial stuff.
Yeah.
You need street level, and I gave them that song because of that. The Sonic Youth was the same thing. There's that "I Want to Be Your Dog" bootleg out. I just went to see him one night at Town and Country in Kentish Town. I was just standing in the audience, just watching him and thinking, not bad, not that great. And some guy comes up and taps me on the shoulder and says, "I'm a roadie for Sonic Youth. They saw you and they want you to come and sing 'I Want to Be Your Dog.'" And I thought, well, if I don't sing it, I'm a chicken. It was just chicken, you know, like in a James Dean movie, or you know that ethic.
Right, you rose to the challenge.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, I still have this bit of the streetness in me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you should be able to fuck, and you should be able to do this, and you should be able to,
raw impulse.
Yeah.
Raw impulse.
Yeah.
The part of the question there was, do you think it's a matter of the times having caught up with you? Like you said, you were well ahead of your time. Like the times when you wrote some of your material with the Stooges. Now, kind of the times have caught up with
the times have caught up with part of my work, but they haven't quite caught up with me in the sense that now, I'd be perfectly frank with you, off stage, I lead a life that a lot of the people now who are leading an extreme life, I think they'll probably be following there in another 20 years. In other words, even though I'm singing, even though I go out on stage and I didn't in Japan, but on much of this tour I bled. I hurt myself a lot on stage. I do in Japan too. Like when I do that shit, I have to go get work done between. Oh yeah, I get fucked up. Yeah.
I mean, what happened?
Well, joints break, and I get cut up. I get cuts on my body. I get bruised. I get messed up. Yeah. Sometimes I can't raise my arm over my head. But I like it. You gotta bleed for your work, man. I'm not. That's just something I believe. Anyway. But off stage, I lead a quiet life with my wife. I call my mother every night on tour. Well, every second or third night, wherever I am, it costs me a lot of money. The first thing I did when I came to Japan was went out to lunch with my wife's parents. My wife's father is a federal policeman, He's a lovely man, and he made the effort to learn a little English to talk to me, and I made the effort to learn a little Japanese to talk to him, and it was awkward for both of us because I'm his son-in-law, and he doesn't have a Japanese son-in-law. He has got me, but I really liked him, and I think he likes me a little too, and so we're trying to push through these barriers, and I place a great value now on things that are, most people would say, are very, very straight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't try to hide it.
Uh-huh.
I'm very straight.
Well, I mean,
but not that straight. But I don't know.
Oh, I mean, look, everybody on the street is very straight as well. I mean,
that's actually true.
What gets you through like the mundane daily routine? Thinking about that next album, thinking about that next tour, or are you just perfectly content to kind of let yourself be enveloped by that kind of mundane routine sort of lifestyle?
Well, I have the mundanity of, I have the wife, and I have a home, and I have relations, but at the same time, the way I am is really nuts. Like I don't spend my time like, okay, time for breakfast now. I'm real weird. Like I don't sleep at night. That's why I always have to have suites in the hotel, because I can't sleep more than an hour or two at a time.
When do you sleep?
I sleep an hour here, a couple hours there, an hour
right.
there. Yeah. I'm edgy, But the point is, I respect the mundanity. Mm-hmm. I respect the conventions, but I'm a little off.
Doesn't drive your wife crazy?
Yeah.
She lives with it.
Yeah.
She lives with it.
Yeah, because I like her.
Yeah.
She knows I like her, and she knows she's important to me, and she's a little weird too.
We all are.
Yeah, she was like a rock and roll kid when I met her. I met her at Sun Plaza in the front row. Mm-hmm. She was down there, and she had something in her eyes I liked, and I sent a roadie, get that girl. Yeah, so I met her. And everybody thought, it'll be over in a few months, but it wasn't. We've been together now since 1983. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know. It's good.
It's continuity.
Yeah.
すごく今自分のこうパワーなりそのままうちにあるものを出せる。
I just gotta say, Steve Jones is always saying, "Are you still with that girl?" Because Steve is still in the rock. Like, I'm a guitar player, suck my dick. He's always telling me, like, I was out last night, and this girl sucked my knob really good, and I was on my motorcycle, and this little girl in front of Cat House sucked it really good. Okay, great, Steve. And, did it make you play any better?
How old is that guy anyway?
What?
How old is Steve Jones?
Steve? That's a good question. I don't know how old he is, but he's not that much younger than I am. He must be in his 30s now.
He's still wagging his tail up.
That's right. He's still wagging his tail. Yeah. But I'm the one out doing the tour.
That's right.
Yeah. That's a good point, Steve.
今回すごくいきなりね、パッとこう自分が出せるようにまたなったっていうなんか話聞いて印象があるんですけど、デビッド・ボーイのプロデュースによるその前作のブラブラブラっていうのを今から振り返ってあれは 100% 満足してます。
Looking back in retrospect on the Bowie produced the blah blah blah, are you completely satisfied with that work?
I think it was the wisest thing I could have done at the time, because what had happened was when I stopped for 4 years, realizing I had to change. I mean, I didn't make a record between 83 and whatever. Well, 80. I think Zombie Birdhouse was the last. I think it was 4 years. It was a lot of years. I wasn't fully connected to band life, to the rock life, and more than that, my currency in the industry had sunk so low that if I didn't have some kind of hit at that point, I would have been finished. And it wasn't something I planned. I just played. The way it happened was Bowie called me up in New York, and he had a demo of, what was it? Oh God. It was a kind of a gospel song he recorded for one of his terrible movies that he appears in. You know, it's like fucking turkey. And he was like, "Let me play you my thing," you know. And I said, "Okay, yeah, play it for me." He played it for me, and it was kind of like, he was recording it with Arif Mardan, the Turkish purveyor of the Turkish rug salesman who does Chaka Khan albums and stuff. And so he played me that. I said it was one of his gospel. What was it called? It came out. It was all done digitally. In other words, later after the demo, he took me to the studio, and I was like falling asleep because the drums were everything was digital. They had all these big. Listen, it's perfect, Iggy. I go, yeah, it sure is perfect. You know? And then I said, well, I have a little demo that I've done with Steve. And he went, you want to play that for me? He was now enthusiastic because he thought it was going to be just this guy shouting, going, like zombie, like Run Like a Villain or something. And I put on Cry for Love and Family Affair. Just me and Steve in an 8-track, and it shut his down. It was so much better, and the voice was strong. And Bowie knows a good thing when he hears one. Bowie's very smart, and he immediately wanted to get in on it.
Brought him back to his senses.
Well, he just went, listen, if you haven't picked a, you know how he talks. Well, listen, Jim, if you haven't picked a producer yet, I could certainly run this one up for you really well. I've got a studio in Switzerland that I can do for rather cheap, and I'll tell you what, I can finance it. And I thought about what he said. I had other offers. The offers I had from American companies to do the demo. The demo was out with the LA companies. They were all giving me these little tiny offers, and if I had gone with one of them, they would have given me a lousy budget, and they would have had an A&R man. They would have had some prick kid telling me, "We'll change this word just to make it more, this or that." And I thought, if I do it with Bowie has a genius for business. And so I did it with Bowie. We recorded it cheap. I paid him a lot on it. And he's still making money off it because it doesn't stop selling. The album, it sells, it keeps selling. It has its points. And plus, once it was done, because it had Bowie involved, all the American companies, and they paid me a huge amount of money, way out of proportion, and it got me on my feet. I paid off my old debts. I got an apartment. Yeah. So, and plus he gave it a neat, clean thing so I could get on the radio. However, artistically, I felt in danger of becoming like Duran Duran, who had Nile Rodgers, the trendy producer, and it made him bigger and bigger. Until suddenly, Nile Rodgers was out of trend. I've just been in Europe, and I've been out drawing Duran Duran. More people coming to Iggy Pop shows than Duran Duran. So I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to just do an Iggy album. So yes and no. I'm always pleased to work with Bowie, but I'm Iggy.
最近のデビッド・ボーイってアーティストとしてどうかしてると思いませんか？
You don't think there's something seriously wrong with Bowie the artist these days, in terms of the work he does? I mean, you were talking about his Mr. Clean production as a little gospel number, but I mean...
He's got a big boat. He's got a few houses. Listen, I'll tell you, guys like David, can I have one of yours? Guys like David, they're in a different world than you and me. These guys are so fucking rich.
Just doesn't matter.
They're in a different world than you are.
今度はあなたが彼にアドバイスする番じゃないですか。
Would you ever be in a position to give him advice?
No, I
wouldn't even bother.
I wouldn't bother. No, it's not up to me because the only advice I ever give him is by not listening to his advice. The best thing I can tell you about my relationship with Bowie is I went to visit him for Christmas after blah 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 and just before recording Instinct. And he said, come down to Mystique for Christmas. Mystique is the island where all the rock stars, Princess Margaret, Mick Jagger, David Bowie.
Where is that?
It's in the Leeward Islands of the Caribbean. You don't know about Mystique?
No.
Oh, it's where all the rock stars, film stars, and English aristocracy have a private island.
Is that right?
Yes. And we went one day to watch tennis on a hillside. Everybody on the hillside was watching the tennis. And they were all on the hills, this grassy hillside, looking down at the tennis. And I was on the grassy hillside looking up at the palm trees and ignoring the tennis. And David looked at me like, you know, he hated me for doing that. And he said, "That's you, Iggy. Everybody's looking this way, and you're looking that way." And I just ignored it. And that pretty much sums up our relationship. He likes to put me down because I'm not successful like he is. But on the other hand, he's interested. He's interested because he knows I'm dangerous. I have something to say. I'm never sure what it is, but I have something to say. And I greatly respect him for he has something that I don't have too. We have a very scratchy relationship. But he's in a different position than I am, and he's done some brilliant work.
Past tense.
Yeah, and he can again. He's capable of it.
What was his best tribute?
For me, his finest albums are Station to Station, Low, and some of the very early stuff he did, like Width of the Circle. I love All the Madmen. I think that's a brilliant song. He's a great artist, no question about it.
He's going to a low.
Well, he's doing other things. He's going to be a film producer now, you know? Yeah, you know, he's in another world. It's a different world. You know, all of these people who work in the arts are individuals, and individuals will always work for their own fulfillment. They're not going to work for the audience. You know, I'm still out working for the audience. You know, I'm still at that level. I'm lucky in a way. In a way, I'm lucky that when I started, conceptually, I was way ahead. But as far as the tools I had to work with, I can't sing like real high, like Axl Rose or something. And I never had the guitar ability to play like Keith. I never had like the blues licks. So because I never had those things, it's kind of good because I'm just getting it now. So it gives me somewhere to go. You see what I mean? I'm like a throwback. You know, I'm just learning not to sing flat. You know.
All right, I guess we've exhausted.
Great,
Thank you very
great.
much.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks a lot too. 写真は
Yeah.
撮るんですね。
Want to take my picture?
Yes, please.
Cool.